I gotta admit, over the past week or so, I'm starting to feel kind of stupid. You ever see that meme on the internet about spending hundreds of dollars and tons of hours of your time in order to grow one 25-cent vegetable? It's crazy that there could be something like that that could be so true, but so wrong at the same time. How much money do we spend on soil amendments, fertilizers, stuff to fill our raised beds? We go to Home Depot, we see that big shiny fertilizer bag with organic written across the front of it. That's a bunch of junk that's blended together in a factory. There's nothing natural about it. We're looking at the NPK levels. Oh, my plants are growing big now. They got enough nitrogen. I want them to start flowering. Let's get some potassium in there. So we go back to the store, spend another 20 bucks for a tiny bag of fertilizer. Then there's warnings on it. So don't give this to your plants too much. They'll die. We're watching our favorite gardening channels on YouTube, watching everyone use this fertilizer. It is the best one, but make sure you click the link in the description below. Cha-ching! Fertilizer is a huge industry. And don't get me wrong, it works great. You're going to grow bigger plants, but think about it. You have a factory setting where they're taking free materials, processing them, and selling them back to you. It really defeats the purpose of even growing our own food. You can go to the grocery store and buy fruits and vegetables with the word organic written on the side of it for a lot cheaper than what it costs for you to buy all this fertilizer and do all this extra work in your garden. But it's okay. Let's just justify all the money we're spending because it's our hobby. And that's kind of where I was going with spending a lot of money. I started telling myself, well, I enjoy doing this, so I got to spend some money on it. Quarter acre of property, completely overgrown brush. To turn this into a functional garden and actually have it ready by the springtime to plant and have a lot of success, yes, it did cost a lot of money. The fencing. The fencing is the first thing you should do in any garden so you don't complain about the pests going in. That was probably around $800 by the time I was done with it, plus about 60 hours of my time. A rototiller that could handle a quarter acre, $750. Soil amendments, only for just where I was planting too. Countless bags of fertilizer, compost, the gas money to till it all in, and then the gas money to drive to the store to buy the amendments. I've got money to spend to get where I need to be with my garden. But from now on, that money has to serve a long-term purpose. Countless hours tilling, watering, caring for plants. I just don't want to do it anymore. We could take advice from some of the greatest gardeners in the world, really successful gardeners that think they got it figured out, and we'll do pretty good. But it seems like we all ignore the greatest gardener of all time, the undefeated gardener, Mother Nature. And it's absolutely nuts. The greatest gardener of all time, and humanity just tries to defeat her constantly. All the destruction human beings cause on this planet, and she is still unstoppable. Look at your lawn. I don't try fighting it, but some people spend thousands of dollars on chemicals to try to kill all the weeds in their lawn, only to lose the battle, and then have to get new fresh sheets of sod and have the same exact thing happen all over again. Take the woods and the prairies and think we're just going to flatten it out, put grass down, build houses, and expect Mother Nature not to fight back. I thought I was going to come in and tear out all this brush in this wooded area, have a nice open spot to maybe plant some shade crops or maybe some shade-loving flowers. Nope, didn't happen. All I really did was cause a rebirth. Some of these grasses that would not be here in the shade are starting to take over. And just look at these fresh raspberry canes that all the birds planted here. Those are doing much better than mine that I moved away from their original planting location. Nature knew where those raspberries would grow best. Just when you plant your garden, there's always tons of problems with plants. We have to do a bunch of different stuff to make them work in the setting that they're planted in. That is because a lot of the stuff we grow is not from around here. It's technically invasive. And the second you plant, nature is trying to remove your crops from your garden. The bugs, the fungi, the bacteria, all the stuff we deal with killing our plants. The natural plants don't have to deal with that. We do. because we are planting something that should not be there. Tomatoes grow in South America, not the upper Midwest. This is starting to sound like a rant, so what exactly am I getting at here? This new method of gardening that I'm going to do is going to be involving working with nature instead of against nature. We're going to try to recreate ecosystems. We're also going to try to help nature out to speed up the process of soil decomposition and give more back to the environment than we are taking from it. Humans technically are animals. We think we're just a little bit smarter than a lot of the other animals. So we've got the technology to create certain products that are biodegradable that we pump into the ecosystem, and nature tries to break them down. Things such as cardboard, newspaper. So if we put something like that out, nature goes to work, sends in the earthworms and other bacteria and stuff, and actually feeds the soil when they eat them and creates soil from it. So taking stuff like that, like I have a dumpster at work that's just loaded with cardboard. After they fill up the recycling bin with it, it goes right in the dumpster. So that's not good. That's going in plastic bags in the landfill. So stuff like cardboard, I'm going to utilize that to help build soil in my garden. Paper plates, paper towels, stuff you usually don't throw into the compost. Some natural composting. I see a lot of videos on Lasagna Gardening. I really like that concept, but I want to incorporate it with other ideas because I don't like just taking one set standard and working with it. I really like the idea of the lasagna method, the no-till, back to Eden was great, but I think these methods can be combined into a more effective method. In nature, something's always growing, something's always dying. When something dies, it gets recycled and the process just goes over and over. So that is one thing I want to recreate in my garden as well. We're going no-till. Nature does not till. Another popular method is no-dig. There's people that they don't want to dig anything out. But in nature, there is digging. Animals dig all the time. I have a giant woodchuck hole behind me. Squirrels, they dig. They're planting seeds. They're taking seeds up. They're digging up roots. A lot of animals dig for food. So digging is part of the natural ecosystem. No artificial fertilizers. Only completely 100% natural, straight from the yard, in the garden, fertilizers. That may sound crazy, but check this out. So this is the bottom of my underutilized compost heap. This is going to play an important part in my garden. I found a way to make tons and tons of compost out of stuff that we normally would not be using to make compost. But I came in here, and if I reach in, look at this. This is absolutely beautiful. I did not do anything to create this. I had hay inside the chicken coop all winter to keep them warm, where the chickens helped fertilize it. Spread it out over the garden, and my tiller did not enjoy having that hay in there. It got caught up in there. So I got fed up, took it all out, tossed it in here into a giant heap. Didn't do anything with it. Finally, once it spoiled and all the seeds were out of it and sprouted, I finally moved it back into the garden to cover the ground. But what was left after doing nothing to it, no turning, the bottom of the pile was this beautiful dirt like I showed you. And I had my second round of squashes and zucchinis going, so I had multiple seedlings on one hill. And I didn't want to just dig them up and compost them. I wanted to just spread them out and move them around. And I didn't want to spend money on more soil supplements to make my mounds. So I decided to just take some of this dirt with all these chunks in here and see what would happen. Just look at this. Look at this guy. Look at that guy. Look at that guy. And then look at this guy. Those first three were grown from just the dirt beneath all that rotted straw that sat there for 8 months. This one was planted with soil amendments. Now, which plant is doing better? Same plant, different setup. Same with this guy. This was a pumpkin that was mixed in with these other pumpkins. It was the spare seed that I planted, and it was just getting in the way of the pumpkin. And instead of ripping it out, I made myself a mound with that really nice dirt from the compost heap. And look at this thing. That is a healthy plant. Here's another guy here. Look how green this plant is. This is actually dirt from inside the forest floor. I barely sifted this. I just moved some wood chips over and took that dirt out. Look how good this plant is doing. I did not have to spend any money to make this mound. This is just pure dirt, straight out of the backyard, made by nature. This has got to be the favorite plant I got growing in my garden. A volunteer squash. I don't even know what kind of squash this is. It kind of looks like a crooked neck maybe. Not 100% sure. It just came out of the compost and we don't even remember throwing any squash in the compost. This was one that I did not expect much out of, but a long time ago, same thing. Same type of dirt mixed with the natural soil. This thing is an absolute beast. I gotta stake this thing up. If I put this up, this thing's about 4 foot tall, and absolutely no pests at all on this. No squash bugs, no cucumber beetles, no vine borers digging into it. This thing has outlasted every other squash type plant I've had in my garden. All from an accidental seed that got planted. This is how I'm gonna get away with using absolutely no fertilizer next year. This nature-made bottom of the compost pile that wasn't turned, just anything that was touching the dirt, turning into soil. Didn't have a lot of it, but the little bit I did have was absolutely amazing. So if I can speed up the process and add extra nutrients into it and really start composting everything. I mean, you go through your garden, you got weeds, and we're taking weeds, we're throwing them in a plastic bag, and we're tossing them in the yard waste and getting rid of them because we're worried that if we put them in the compost, they're going to pop up and overtake our garden. There are ways to prevent that when you do composting. Like weeds like this, if I yank them out, it's got the roots on there. If you cut the roots off, look at all this organic matter. That is such a waste if you get rid of that. So all my planting is going to be directly into this beautiful soil I'm going to create. And that's going to be the top layer I plant into. You look here, I have all this hay and straw. I take weeds, I throw it on top of this. This is all active composting, rotting organic matter. I'm starting the work now. You can see I am just piling this stuff on top of the ground. And look at this, Facebook Marketplace, alfalfa, no pesticides, no weed killers, nothing. It's got tons of seeds in it, it's got tons of weeds in it, but this is great organic matter. And these seeds will not matter, and I'll show you why. Because we are using the animal-made, aka human, cardboard to line this garden. So if you do lasagna gardening, what you normally do is you start out with all your cardboard first and put it down. I think that's kind of a waste because I've watched all this hay in my garden shrink down over time. And yeah, we get weeds popping up here and there. But you pull this aside, that is, look at that, it's just great dirt underneath there. Because this is constantly decomposing into the garden. So if I take that whole guy and line this whole entire garden with that, we get rain, snow, anything that happens, it is going to decompose that into this garden. And those weeds are going to sprout up out of all the seeds in that hay. But we are going to line cardboard on top of it, which is going to keep that soil nice and cool and moist, and those earthworms are going to come up and start doing their job. That's Mother Nature fighting back right there. She says, this is not something natural having this here. I need to take care of this matter. I don't like cardboard. That's not a real thing. I'm going to take care of it, and while I'm at it, I'm going to feed all these beneficial worms. And that is where we benefit because cardboard broken down by worms turns into amazing soil. But we don't stop there. We have the hay and straw. We have spent weeds. We're going to have some compost. This is going to be an active compost pile, almost this whole entire thing. And once these plants are out of here and the garden's done for the year, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have a giant stack of a completely active compost pile, just doing work all winter. And we come back, it's going to be weighed down. That weighed down matter is the base layer for this new garden design. And then our specially made compost that we're going to do is going to be our planting rows. I don't want to water anymore. When we had the drought conditions here, dragging a hose through a 1/4 acre to water plants was an absolute nightmare. It seemed like almost every day we had to do that. You know who did not have to water when we had a drought here? Mother Nature. From the shaded areas that retain moisture to the open lawn full of weeds, nature had to deal with the same thing I did in my garden. The only difference is I had to water my plants constantly. You know who wins that round? The weeds in the lawn, because they're natural and the grass is not natural. Man put that there. And all these other plants. And the losers are my plants, which didn't really lose because I did water them a lot, but it's just so much work. I've got an amazing row of carrots right here. They're doing really good right now. And you know when they did better? They did better when I stopped taking care of them. You see, carrots are related to a native plant to Michigan called Queen's Lace. Look at all this Queen's Lace that I have growing in my asparagus right now. This Queen's Lace is doing pretty good. It's doing great, even through the drought. This is like a natural meadow prairie type plant where you've had years of dead weeds just piling on the ground, forming this cover right here. That's like a natural mulch. So when I put this spent, spoiled hay down here finally around these, this is retaining moisture, just like it would in a prairie. So this is basically recreating what nature does to take care of its own plants. Based on what I'm growing and what country of origin they're from, I want to try to recreate what nature does when it comes to moisture retention, you know, expelling water, whatever we need to do to make the plants happy. We want to set up the environment to make it just like it would be in the wild. Kind of like this. And like these carrots, completely neglected, no soil amendments or anything. And you go in here, I mean, these are carrots not in a raised garden bed. These are carrots just planted straight into the natural prairie dirt. We really got to stop overthinking it. Sometimes everything we need is right there in front of our face. Here's another good one right behind me. The chip drop. Absolutely free. There's so much controversy on the internet when it comes to wood chips in the garden. There's videos I've watched of people talking about don't use these in their garden. It doesn't work. They've watched Back to Eden. They're trying to do a garden in wood chips. The problem is they are being used wrong. It feels like common sense, but you don't plant directly into wood chips. And there's different stages of these wood chips that work better for certain things. This stuff, the outside, these bigger chunks that aren't broken down. This is for your walkway in your garden. Make it the permanent walkway. From the second these things are dropped off, the magic begins to happen. This chip drop service is nice because it has a lot of the green matter mixed with the brown matter. And when you mix brown and green matter, composting begins. Look at all that steam coming out. That is a hot pile of wood chips right now. That steam means that this is an active compost pile. If you leave this here long enough, the inside of this pile is going to turn into really nice compost. We don't have a bucket truck or a tractor to flip this stuff around to cook this evenly, but The insides are going to cook. That's going to turn into compost for us. And I'm also using the stuff that's already started and nice and warm in my compost pile, mixing it with more greens. So I have free material, base material, to make my own compost right from this chip drop. And why wait to cut our grass to get enough green material to make our compost when we have junk weeds in our garden that we're going to toss anyway that we're afraid to compost? We cut the roots and seeds off. That is free green matter, which will turn into free compost, which is very expensive at the store. Big green leaves like these burdocks. Look at all that green matter. And these giant pokeweeds with the berries on it. Just cut those berries off. Look how juicy those leaves and stems are. That's gonna fill you up on your green side a lot quicker than your lawn clippings are. For me, the browns are a lot harder to get than the greens. I got a whole wheelbarrow full of stinging nettles right now. I'm clearing out another section to build more piles of compost. And that means that the chip drop has got me covered when it comes to getting my browns. Let's not spend thousands of dollars to build our gardens. Let's use what we already have. Let's work with nature instead of against nature and try to give something back. No more buying fertilizer. Winter is coming fast. It's going to be a perfect time to do research on what you're going to plant next year and look at where it comes from around the globe and come up with ideas to recreate those environments. The work starts right now, but hopefully all this extra work we're doing to get everything set up for next year is going to give us a lot more free time for next year's growing season to just enjoy watching our plants grow. I hope you found this video intriguing and it's opened your mind to different ways to garden, not the traditional ways that we're used to. It's been working for millions of years, so there is no possibility to fail here. I hope you guys subscribe to the channel so you can follow along with me and maybe even try it for yourself. I want to hear your thoughts on everything I just talked about, so let's chat in the comment section. So until the next video, thanks for watching.